I straightened my simple black dress, feeling distinctly out of place amid the crystal glasses and fine china that adorned my parents' dining table. Another lavish family dinner where I'd be reminded exactly where I stood in the hierarchy of success. "Emma dear, pass the salt." My mother's voice carried that familiar note of disappointment she'd perfected over the years. The same tone she used when telling her friends that her only daughter was still just a secretary. My brother Michael sat across from me, his custom Italian suit practically gleaming under the chandelier light. Next to him, his wife Sophia adjusted her diamond necklace while their perfect children sat quietly, already trained in the art of family superiority. "So Michael," Dad began, his chest puffing with pride, "tell us about this merger you're working on. Biggest deal of the year, isn't it?" Michael's smile widened. "Global Tech and Harrison Industries. $2 billion deal, Dad. The papers are being signed tomorrow morning." He took a slow sip of his wine, savoring not just the taste but the moment. "Of course, being chief financial officer means I'm handling all the major negotiations." "That's wonderful, darling." Mom beamed. "And Peter?" He turned to my other brother. "How's the legal department treating you?" Peter straightened his tie. "Made senior partner last month. Youngest in the firm's history." I quietly ate my salad, trying to make myself invisible. But of course that never worked in this family. "And Emma?" Mom's attention suddenly landed on me like a spotlight. "Still working as a secretary, dear?" Before I could answer, Michael let out a laugh that felt like a slap. "She's not just any secretary, Mom. She's an executive assistant." His voice dripped with mockery. "To some consulting firm nobody's ever heard of. Phoenix Consulting Group," I said quietly, but nobody seemed to hear. "She's just a secretary," Michael continued, talking about me as if I wasn't there. "While we're all executives. But hey, someone has to make the coffee, right?" Laughter rippled around the table. Even the children smirked, already learning that Aunt Emma was the family joke. I started to speak, but Peter cut me off. "Hey, maybe you can apply at Harrison Industries after the merger. I hear they have great benefits for support staff. Though." He paused, examining me with faux concern. "You might want to upgrade your wardrobe first. That dress looks like it came from a department store." It was a $3,000 Alexander McQueen I'd bought myself after closing my first major deal, but I didn't bother correcting him. Let them think what they wanted. "I'm doing fine where I am," I said simply. "Oh honey," Mom reached across to pat my hand. "You don't have to pretend with us. We know times must be tough. Maybe if you'd finished your MBA instead of dropping out." "I did finish it," I said. "Night classes. 3 years ago." Michael nearly choked on his wine. "Wait, you got an MBA? Why, it's not like you need one to schedule meetings and order lunch." I thought about my office on the top floor of the Phoenix building. About the teams of analysts who reported to me, the billion-dollar deals I'd orchestrated, the companies I'd transformed. About how tomorrow morning, my signature would be the only one that mattered on the Global Tech merger papers. But instead of speaking, I just smiled and asked Mom to pass the potatoes. "Well," Dad cleared his throat, clearly ready to move on to more important matters. "Michael, tell us more about tomorrow's meeting. This merger will make the family proud." As Michael launched into another self-congratulatory speech about his role in the deal, I checked my phone under the table. A message from my assistant glowed on the screen. "Everything's set for tomorrow's 9 a.m. meeting. The Harrison Industries team is nervous about the last-minute changes you requested. Should I tell them it's non-negotiable?" I typed a quick yes, and slipped the phone back into my pocket, hiding my smile behind my wine glass. "Tomorrow would be interesting indeed. I just hope you're not late to your little secretary job because of all this family dinner wine." Michael smirked, noticing my drink. "Those coffee runs are pretty important." If he only knew I owned the building where he was signing the papers tomorrow. That every aspect of this merger had been orchestrated by Phoenix Consulting Group. By me. But for now I just nodded demurely. "Don't worry about me, Michael. I wouldn't miss tomorrow for anything in the world." The next morning I arrived at Phoenix Consulting Group's headquarters an hour early. The sun was just rising over the city skyline, casting long shadows through the floor-to-ceiling windows of my private elevator. I smiled, remembering Michael's sneer about coffee runs. If only he knew this entire building belonged to his little secretary sister. "Good morning, Miss Phoenix," my assistant James greeted me as I stepped into my top-floor office. Only a handful of people knew that Emma Carlton, the secretary my family mocked, was actually Emma Phoenix, founder and CEO of one of the most powerful consulting firms in the country. The Harrison Industries team arrived early, James continued. They're quite nervous about the changes you demanded to the merger terms. I nodded, setting my briefcase down on my desk. And my family? Your brother Michael is in the main conference room, trying to convince our junior associates to let him speak directly with the CEO. James couldn't hide his smirk. He's been quite insistent. I'm sure he has. I pulled out a small mirror, checking my appearance. Gone was the intentionally understated dress from last night. Today I wore a perfectly tailored Chanel suit, Louboutin heels, and the diamond earrings I'd bought myself after my first billion-dollar deal. How long has he been waiting? 20 minutes. He's mentioned his CFO title approximately 12 times. I took a slow sip of my coffee. Premium Brazilian roast, not the cheap break room stuff Michael probably imagined I served. Let's make it 30. Sometimes a little humility is the best teacher. While I waited, I reviewed the final merger documents. The terms were brutal but fair. Global Tech, the company Michael thought he was acquiring, was actually one of my shell corporations. Once the papers were signed, Harrison Industries would become a subsidiary of Phoenix Consulting Group. Michael wouldn't just be losing his CFO position. He'd be working for his little sister. At precisely 9 a.m. I gathered my files and headed to the conference room. Through the glass walls I could see Michael pacing, his perfect suit already showing signs of stress. Peter sat nearby, frantically flipping through legal documents, probably trying to figure out how they'd missed Phoenix Consulting Group's quiet acquisition of Global Tech. I paused outside the door, remembering all the family dinners where they'd talked over me, all the snide comments about my career, all the times they'd made me feel small. This wasn't about revenge. It was about respect. The CEO will see you now, James announced, opening the door. Michael spun around, ready to unleash his executive authority. The words died on his lips as I walked in. Emma. Peter dropped his pen. What are you doing here? This is a private meeting. I walked calmly to the head of the table, setting my files down with practiced precision. Good morning, gentlemen. Shall we begin? Begin? Emma, you need to leave. This is an executive-level meeting. Michael's face had turned red. Go get your boss some coffee or whatever it is you do. I sat down, folding my hands on the table. I am the boss, Michael. Emma Phoenix, founder and CEO of Phoenix Consulting Group. But you know me better as just a secretary. The silence that followed was absolute. Michael's mouth opened and closed like a fish out of water. Peter had gone pale, probably remembering every condescending comment he'd ever made. This is impossible, Michael finally sputtered. You're lying. Where's the real CEO? I nodded to James, who started the presentation screens. My credentials, company ownership documents, and financial records filled the walls. 10 years of building an empire while my family thought I was fetching coffee. Global Tech, the company you think you're merging with? I continued, enjoying the way Michael flinched at each word. I created it 3 years ago as a subsidiary. Harrison Industries isn't acquiring Global Tech. Phoenix Consulting Group is acquiring Harrison Industries. Peter frantically flipped through his papers. But the board approved this merger. They approved a merger with Global Tech, yes. Did anyone bother to check who actually owned Global Tech? I pulled out the final contract. Your due diligence was sloppy, brothers. Perhaps because you were too busy mocking my career to pay attention to who was really pulling the strings. Michael stood up so quickly his chair toppled over. I'll fight this. The board won't stand for it. Dad won't. Dad's already signed off on it. I cut him off, sliding over another document. Our father's signature was at the bottom, dated 2 weeks ago. He just doesn't know it yet. You see, Phoenix Consulting Group has owned a controlling interest in Harrison Industries for months. We've been quietly buying shares through various shells while you were busy bragging at family dinners. Why? Peter's voice was barely a whisper. Why go to all this trouble? I leaned back in my chair, remembering every dismissive comment, every family gathering where they treated me like I was nothing. Because you needed to learn that titles don't define competence. That treating people as beneath you because of their job title says more about you than them. So what now? Michael had collapsed back into his chair, his arrogance deflated. You're firing us? No, I smiled. That would be too easy. You're both staying on with reduced roles and new supervisors. Young, ambitious people who started in support staff positions. People you would have dismissed as just secretaries. I stood up, smoothing my jacket. The merger papers need to be signed by noon. I suggest you take some time to read them carefully, especially the parts about your new positions. James will show you to a smaller conference room. I believe the coffee maker there is still working in case you need to practice your new skills. As I walked out, Peter called after me. Emma, wait. Does Mom know? Does anyone in the family know? I paused at the door. They will soon. I believe Mom's planning another family dinner this Sunday. I think I'll attend after all. I just bought a new dress for the occasion. From a department store, of course. The rest of the day passed in a blur of signatures and legal formalities. By 5 p.m., Harrison Industries was officially part of Phoenix Consulting Group. I sat in my office watching the sunset paint the city gold, when James brought in an urgent message. Your mother called the office directly, he said. Apparently your brothers missed the regular family dinner. She's quite concerned. I checked my watch, 7 p.m. Michael and Peter were probably still sitting in their offices, trying to process how their secretary sister had outmaneuvered them. Should I have told them? I wondered aloud. About all those nights taking MBA classes while they thought I was working late? About starting Phoenix from my tiny apartment, building it client by client while they mocked my little secretary job? James shook his head. They wouldn't have believed you anyway. Some people can only learn through experience. My phone buzzed, a text from Mom. Emma dear, are you coming to Sunday dinner? Michael and Peter aren't answering their phones. Did something happen at work? I typed back, don't worry Mom. They're just adjusting to some corporate changes. And yes, I'll be there Sunday. In fact, I have some exciting news to share. Oh, wonderful, she replied immediately. Did you finally get a promotion? I smiled, looking around my corner office with its view of the city I'd quietly conquered. Something like that, Mom. Something like that. The next morning, the business papers announced the merger. Phoenix Consulting Group acquires Harrison Industries in surprise move. The article included a photo of me, Emma Phoenix, CEO, signing the final papers. I had it framed and sent to my parents' house along with a note. Looking forward to Sunday dinner. Don't worry about the wine. I'll bring something from my private collection. After all, a secretary should know how to serve drinks. That Sunday I arrived at my parents' house exactly on time. Michael and Peter's cars were nowhere in sight. Probably still too embarrassed to face the family. Mom opened the door, her eyes wide as she took in my outfit. A designer suit that cost more than their monthly mortgage. Emma, she gasped. Is that you in the newspaper? The one about Phoenix Consulting Group. I handed her the bottle of wine. A rare vintage worth more than what they thought I made in a year. We have a lot to talk about, Mom. But first, I believe you owe your secretary daughter an apology. The look on her face was worth every moment of keeping my success secret. Sometimes the best revenge isn't serving it cold. It's serving it with a perfectly paired wine and watching your family realize that the person they underestimated now owns their entire world. As I took my seat at the dinner table, at the head where Michael usually sat, I couldn't help but smile. Success tastes sweetest when seasoned with justice, served with a side of humble pie, and garnished with the perfect amount of irony. So, I said, raising my glass. Who wants to hear about my little secretary job? Family dinners at the Montgomery mansion were always an exercise in humiliation. But tonight's gathering celebrating my brother James's promotion to CEO of Montgomery Industries was proving to be especially brutal. And then, James laughed, waving his crystal wine glass, little Olivia here tries to tell me her startup is disrupting the industry. Can you believe it? As if her tiny software company could compete with real businesses. I pushed my untouched filet mignon around my plate, remembering the acquisition papers sitting in my laptop bag. The ones that would make his real business mine by morning. Now James, our older sister Margaret chimed in with fake sympathy, don't be too hard on her. Not everyone can handle the pressure of running a major corporation. Some people are better suited to smaller ventures. I am Olivia Montgomery, though my family seems to prefer little Olivia, or the disappointing one, or our sister who thinks she's a tech entrepreneur. 3 years ago, I walked away from my cushy executive position at Montgomery Industries to start Horizon Technologies. My family had never forgiven me for what they saw as a betrayal of our 100-year legacy. Speaking of your little project, my father said, examining his expensive watch rather than looking at me, how many employees do you have now? 6. 273, I replied quietly. James nearly choked on his wine. 200? Come on, Olivia. Stop exaggerating. Your entire company operates out of that shabby office park downtown. That shabby office park was actually a carefully constructed front. Horizon Technologies' real headquarters occupied 3 floors of a prestigious high-rise across town, hidden behind a shell company name. But they didn't need to know that. Not yet. I saw your website the other day, Margaret added, scrolling through her phone. Still using that basic template? You really should hire a proper design team. I know some people who might help, for a reasonable fee. My phone buzzed silently in my pocket. A message from my CFO. Final paperwork cleared. Funds transferred. Ready when you are. Olivia's always been the dreamer of the family, my mother sighed, patting my hand condescendingly. Remember when she was little? Always talking about changing the world with technology. Well, she certainly changed her world, James smirked. Changed it from a corner office at Montgomery Industries to whatever storage closet she's calling her headquarters now. More laughter around the table. I took a small sip of water, thinking about the headlines that would hit their phones in exactly 17 minutes. I just worry about you, dear, my mother continued. You had such a promising future with the family company. Vice President of Operations by 35, just like your brother. Now look at James, youngest CEO in Montgomery Industries history. James puffed up with pride. The board's announcement goes public tonight. James Montgomery Jr. takes helm of family empire. Has a nice ring to it, doesn't it? If only they knew about the other announcement scheduled for tonight. Did you at least bring in any revenue this quarter? My father asked, finally deigning to look at me. Or are you still burning through your trust fund? I thought about Horizon's last quarterly report, $380 million in revenue, with profit margins that would make Montgomery Industries board members weep. But those numbers were carefully hidden behind private company protections and non-disclosure agreements. We're doing fine, I said simply. Fine. James laughed. Montgomery Industries did $50 million last quarter. That's what real success looks like, little sister. Not some pathetic startup playing at being a real company. My phone buzzed again. My assistant this time. Press release scheduled for 8:15 p.m. All major financial news outlets confirmed. I checked my watch. 12 minutes. You know, Margaret said, reaching for the expensive Bordeaux, there's still time to come back to the family business. I'm sure James could find you a suitable position. Something appropriate for your skills. Thank you, but I'm happy where I am. Happy? James scoffed. Running some tiny software shop while the rest of us operate in the real business world? Your entire company probably doesn't even make what I spend on lunch accounts. I smiled slightly, remembering the board meeting where we'd reviewed Montgomery Industries' financials. Their impressive numbers had sealed their fate. They were vulnerable, overextended, and perfect for a takeover. Speaking of business, my father turned to James. Have you heard anything about those rumors? The ones about a tech company looking to acquire firms in our sector. James waved his hand dismissively. Probably just market speculation. No tech company has the resources to acquire Montgomery Industries. We're too big, too established. My phone buzzed one final time. My legal team. Acquisition complete. Ownership transferred. Congratulations on your new company. 8 minutes. I just don't understand, my mother sighed. Why you insist on this startup fantasy when you could be part of something real? Something significant. Your little tech experiment is pathetic, James declared, raising his glass. A real Montgomery builds on the family legacy, not whatever this is. I checked my watch again. 5 minutes until their phones would light up with the news that their precious family legacy had just been acquired by my pathetic startup. More wine, little sister? James asked mockingly. Or is that too expensive for a startup founder's budget? 4 minutes. You know what's really pathetic? Margaret added. Pretending your tiny company matters in the real business world. It's embarrassing, honestly. 3 minutes. My father lifted his glass. To James Montgomery Jr., new CEO of Montgomery Industries. Now this is what real success looks like. 2 minutes. I picked up my water glass, watching them all toast to their imagined superiority. In exactly 120 seconds, their worlds would shatter. And I would be right here at their celebration dinner watching it happen. The first phone buzzed at exactly 8:15 p.m. Then another. And another. Around the table, screens lit up with breaking news notifications, interrupting their self-congratulatory celebration. James reached for his phone first, his face turning an interesting shade of white as he read the headline. Breaking. Horizon Technologies acquires Montgomery Industries in surprise $2.8 billion takeover. What? He whispered, his wine glass freezing halfway to his mouth. This has to be a mistake. Margaret grabbed her own phone, manicured fingers trembling. No, no, no. This isn't possible. More headlines flashed across their screens. Tech startup Horizon Technologies makes power move in industry-shaking acquisition. Montgomery Industries sold to rising tech giant in unexpected deal. Olivia Montgomery. From pathetic startup to industry titan. My father's phone clattered to the table. Olivia, he said, his voice barely a whisper, what have you done? I took another small sip of water, enjoying the panic spreading across their faces. Oh, did the announcement go out? Perfect timing. You. James stood up so quickly his chair toppled backward. Your pathetic little startup. You're behind this? Horizon Technologies isn't so pathetic after all, is it? I opened my laptop, turning it to show them the acquisition documents. By the way, James, congratulations on becoming CEO. For exactly. I checked my watch, 43 minutes. That might be a record. This is a joke, Margaret declared, but her voice shook. Your tiny company couldn't possibly have the resources to dash $380 million in quarterly revenue, I cut her off. 85% profit margins. Over $4 billion in liquid assets. Would you like to see the numbers? I have them right here. My mother's hands flew to her pearls. But your shabby office downtown. A front, I explained calmly. Our real headquarters takes up 3 floors of the Morgan Building. You know that glass tower you always admired? I bought it last year. My father's face had turned an alarming shade of red. You can't do this. We're family. The board would never dash. The board already did, I interrupted, pulling out more documents. They voted unanimously this morning. Apparently, they were quite impressed with Horizon's technology and concerned about Montgomery Industries' declining market share. James lunged for my laptop. Show me those documents. Careful, brother dear. Assaulting a CEO could have serious consequences. Speaking of which, I turned to my phone. Sarah, please implement Protocol Alpha. What's Protocol Alpha? Margaret demanded. As if in answer, their phones buzzed again, emails from Montgomery Industries' HR department. Effective immediately, all executive positions are under review. Please clear your offices by noon tomorrow. You're firing us? James's voice cracked. From our own company. Not your company anymore, I corrected him. And yes, all C-suite positions are being eliminated. We'll be restructuring under Horizon's management team. Mother. Margaret turned to our shell-shocked parents. Do something. My mother's face had crumpled. Olivia, please. We can talk about this. Come back to the family dash. Family. I laughed softly. Like how you welcome me at family dinners. Mocked my company. Called my success pathetic. I stood up, smoothing my dress. The same one Margaret had earlier called suitable for a small business owner. The press conference is scheduled for tomorrow morning. I'll be announcing Horizon's plans for Montgomery Industries restructuring. You're welcome to watch the live stream, assuming you can afford the internet after today. This is revenge, James spat. Plain and simple revenge. No, brother dear. This is business. Real business. The kind you thought I couldn't handle. I picked up my laptop bag. By the way, that corner office you're so proud of? I'll be using that as a storage room. My father finally found his voice. You've destroyed this family. No, father. I built something bigger than this family. Something real. Something significant. I quoted his earlier words back to him. Isn't that what you always wanted? More phones buzzed, financial news alerts showing Montgomery Industries stock soaring on news of the acquisition. My acquisition. One more thing, I paused at the dining room door. That shabby office park you all laughed at? I bought that too. Might use it for junior employee parking. The chaos behind me was spectacular. James was frantically calling his lawyers. Margaret was crying into her wine glass. My mother had collapsed into her chair, pearls clutched so tightly they might snap. My phone buzzed one last time, a message from my assistant. Cars ready out front, Ms. Montgomery. Would you like me to send a cleaning crew for your new corner office? I looked back at my family's shattered celebration. At James's CEO announcement speech cards scattered across the table. At Margaret's phone still buzzing with headlines about her little sister's triumph. No need for cleaning yet, I replied. Let them pack up their own pathetic legacy. Outside, my driver held the door to my Bentley, the one I'd parked between James's Ferrari and Margaret's Mercedes. The same car they'd probably assumed I couldn't afford. Where to, Ms. Montgomery? I smiled, thinking of the empty corner office waiting for me. The one James had been so proud of just an hour ago. Take me to my new company, I said. The real one. As we pulled away, I could see them through the dining room window, the mighty Montgomery family, brought down by the pathetic startup they'd never taken seriously. Tomorrow they'd wake up to find their kingdom gone, their titles stripped, their legacy now just a subsidiary of Horizon Technologies. Sometimes success isn't about proving others wrong. Sometimes it's about letting them mock you right up until the moment their phones buzz with the news that changes everything. And sometimes the sweetest victory is served at a family dinner, right between the filet mignon and their shattered dreams. My phone buzzed one final time, an email from James. We can fix this. Come back to the family. Please. I deleted it without reading further. They'd never understood that I hadn't left the family business. I just built a better one. I adjusted my simple black blazer, standing in the marble lobby of Harrison Enterprises. Around me, my family members streamed into the main conference room, dressed in their designer best for the emergency board meeting. No one spared me a glance. I was invisible, just as I'd been for the past 7 years. Emma, what are you doing here? My Uncle James's voice cut through the pre-meeting chatter. He stood in the doorway of the conference room, his expensive suit and carefully styled gray hair screaming old money and power. I'm here for the meeting, I said calmly, holding up the company ID I still kept. I own shares, remember? The ones Grandpa left me. A dismissive laugh rippled through the gathering crowd. My cousin Peter smirked from behind his father. Those worthless Class B shares. They don't even give you voting rights anymore. He was right. 7 years ago, when I'd refused to sell my small inheritance of company shares, the board led by Uncle James had voted to convert them to non-voting stock. It was their way of ensuring I'd never have a say in the family business. This is a critical meeting, Uncle James said, straightening his Italian silk tie. This is for successful family members only. People who understand business. The irony of his words almost made me laugh. If only he knew why this emergency meeting had been called. If only he knew who really held the cards. But I started, playing my part perfectly. You what? My cousin Amanda cut in, her diamond bracelet catching the light as she gestured dismissively. You'll contribute your vast experience from working at that little investment firm? What do you even do there? Secretary. More laughter. They had no idea that my little investment firm was just a front, that I was actually the founder and CEO of Phoenix Capital, one of the most secretive and successful investment companies in the country. The same company that had just acquired 45% of Harrison Enterprises through a series of shell corporations. This meeting is about saving the company, Uncle James said firmly. Something you wouldn't understand. Now, if you'll excuse us, we're expecting an important investor. He closed the door in my face, the heavy wood making a satisfying thud. I checked my watch, right on schedule. I walked to the elevator, pressed the button for the top floor and entered my private office, the one none of them knew existed. Inside, I changed from my simple blazer into an Armani suit worth more than Uncle James's car. My assistant Claire was waiting. Everything's ready, she said, handing me a leather portfolio. They have no idea Phoenix Capital is you. The paperwork is prepared exactly as you wanted it. I opened the portfolio, reviewing the documents one last time. Acquisition papers, voting rights transfers, new board appointments, everything I needed to take control of Harrison Enterprises. How much time do I have? I asked, although I already knew the answer. They're all assembled in the conference room, Claire replied, a small smile playing on her lips. Mr. Harrison is about to announce the company's financial crisis. Then you're expected to make your grand entrance as the mysterious CEO of Phoenix Capital. I nodded, thinking back to 7 years ago. I just graduated with my MBA, full of ideas about modernizing Harrison Enterprises. But Uncle James and the rest of the family had laughed me out of the boardroom. Leave the business to the men, they'd said. Focus on finding a husband instead. So I had left, taking my small inheritance and grandmother's advice about patience. I'd built Phoenix Capital from nothing, operating in complete secrecy, watching as my family's arrogance slowly drove Harrison Enterprises toward bankruptcy. Now they needed a savior, and they had no idea that the mysterious billionaire investor they'd been courting was the same person they'd just kicked out of their meeting. Send the signal, I told Claire. It's time for the CEO of Phoenix Capital to make an appearance. She pressed a button on her phone, sending a message to the boardroom that their potential savior had arrived. I gathered my documents and stood before the mirror, checking my reflection. Gone was the invisible cousin in the simple blazer. In her place stood a woman worth billions, about to buy out the family that had underestimated her for so long. Ready? Claire asked, holding the door. I smiled, thinking of Uncle James's smirk as he closed the door in my face. Oh yes, I said. I've been ready for 7 years. The corridor to the conference room had never felt longer. With each step I could feel the weight of 7 years of planning, of silent victories and patient waiting, carrying me forward. Behind those doors, my family was about to learn a very expensive lesson about underestimating the wrong person. I paused at the entrance, straightened my suit and nodded to Claire. It was time for the mystery investor to make her entrance. Time to show them exactly who they'd kicked out of their meeting. The conference room fell silent as I walked in. Uncle James stood at the head of the table, mid-sentence about the company's dire financial situation. His face lit up when he saw me, not with recognition but with desperate hope. After all, in this suit, with my hair elegantly styled and my posture radiating power, I looked nothing like the failed cousin they'd dismissed minutes ago. Ladies and gentlemen, Claire announced from behind me, allow me to introduce the CEO of Phoenix Capital. I surveyed the room, savoring the moment. My cousin Peter had stopped texting under the table. Amanda's perfectly manicured hand froze halfway to her mouth. Uncle James practically tripped over himself rushing to greet me. We're so honored to have you here, he gushed, extending his hand. I'm James Harrison, CEO of Harrison Enterprises. I let him hold out his hand for just a moment too long before taking it. For now, I said quietly, watching confusion flicker across his face. Taking my place at the head of the table, his place, I opened my portfolio. Shall we discuss why Harrison Enterprises is worth saving? Of course, Uncle James recovered quickly, retaking his seat. As you can see from our projections. Your projections are wrong, I cut him off, sliding financial documents across the table. Your company is bleeding money faster than you're admitting. Your Asian markets are collapsing, your tech division is 3 years behind the competition, and your real estate holdings are mortgaged to the hilt. Shocked murmurs rippled through the room. These were secrets they'd tried desperately to hide from potential investors. How did you? Peter started, but I continued as if he hadn't spoken. You need more than an investor, I said, my voice carrying to every corner of the room. You need someone to completely restructure this company. Someone who understands modern business practices, someone who isn't trapped in outdated thinking. Uncle James's face had turned an interesting shade of red. With all due respect, we have generations of experience. Generations of running this company into the ground, I corrected him. Would you like to know your current market value? It's less than 1/3 what it was 7 years ago. 7 years. I saw the number register with some of them. 7 years since they'd laughed me out of this very room. Phoenix Capital is prepared to acquire a controlling interest in Harrison Enterprises, I continued, sliding more documents across the table. We already own 45% through various subsidiaries. This offer is for an additional 15%. 60%? Uncle James sputtered. But that would mean Phoenix Capital, that I would have complete control of the company. I smiled, watching comprehension slowly dawn on their faces. Including the right to appoint a new board of directors and CEO. Amanda stood up suddenly. You can't do this. This is a family company. Is it? I asked softly. Because minutes ago you were quite eager to sell to a stranger. Or does family only matter when it's convenient? I stood, walking around the table slowly. Would you like to know how Phoenix Capital grew so powerful so quickly? We looked for companies like this one. Businesses run by arrogant men so convinced of their own superiority that they couldn't see the world changing around them. Stopping behind Uncle James's chair, I continued. Companies that ignored talented people because they didn't fit the right profile. Companies that valued tradition over innovation, ego over progress. Who are you? Uncle James whispered, finally asking the right question. I leaned down, speaking just loud enough for everyone to hear. Someone who understands business. Someone you kicked out of a meeting less than an hour ago. The recognition that swept through the room was almost palpable. Peter dropped his phone. Amanda sank back into her chair. Uncle James's face went from red to white in an instant. Emma, he choked out. Surprise, I said softly, straightening up. Still think I don't understand business, Uncle James? The silence that followed was deafening. 7 years of underestimation, of dismissal, of condescension, all shattered in a single moment. But I wasn't done yet. Not even close. Now, I said, returning to my place at the head of the table, shall we discuss the terms of your surrender? Or would you prefer to explain to the shareholders why you rejected a billion-dollar lifeline because of your pride? The choice was clear. And as I watched my family's empire crumble before me, I couldn't help but think that sometimes, revenge is best served in a designer suit with a side of hostile takeover. The next hour was a masterclass in corporate dismantling. One by one, I laid out the terms of Phoenix Capital's takeover. My family sat in stunned silence as I systematically stripped away their power, their privileges, and their illusions of control. First, I said, pulling out another document, all current board members will tender their resignations effective immediately. You can't just dash, Peter began. I can and I will. I slid the resignation letters across the table. Sign them now, or I'll call an emergency shareholder meeting and have you removed publicly. Your choice. Uncle James stared at the paper in front of him, his hand trembling slightly. Everything I built. Everything you inherited, I corrected him. And then nearly destroyed through mismanagement and ego. Amanda, tears streaking her expensive mascara, tried one last plea. But we're family. Family. I stood up, planting my hands on the table. Was it family when you blocked my proposals for digital transformation? When you mocked my MBA thesis about modernizing the company? When you told the industry I was just a failed heiress playing at business? I pulled up the company's financial records on the screen behind me. While you were all flying private jets and buying vacation homes with company money, I was building something real. Phoenix Capital has acquired 37 companies in 7 years. We've turned every single one of them profitable. The numbers didn't lie. My success was there in black and white, undeniable and overwhelming. Here's what's going to happen, I continued. Harrison Enterprises will be restructured. The old board is out. The nepotism ends today. From now on, positions will be earned, not inherited. I pressed a button and Claire entered with a new stack of documents. These are your severance packages. Generous ones, provided you sign non-disclosure agreements and leave quietly. And if we refuse? Uncle James asked, finding his voice at last. I smiled, pulling up another document on the screen. Then I released the audit findings to the SEC. The hidden accounts, the manipulated books, the insider trading, all of it. The color drained from his face. He knew I had him. Had all of them. You've been planning this for years, Peter said, realization finally dawning. All those quiet investments, the shell companies. 7 years, I confirmed. Long enough to watch you run this company into the ground. Long enough to build Phoenix Capital into something powerful enough to swallow Harrison Enterprises whole. I walked to the window looking out over the city skyline. You know what the funniest part is? If you had listened to me 7 years ago, None of this would have been necessary. My proposals would have saved the company. But you couldn't see past your own prejudices. Turning back to face them, I saw something I'd never seen before in their eyes. Respect tinged with fear. You have until the end of the day to sign those papers, I said. After that, the offer expires and I do this the hard way. One by one they signed. Uncle James was last, his signature shaky but legible. Claire, I called, please escort the former board members out. Their building access will be revoked effective immediately. As they filed out, defeated and shell-shocked, Uncle James paused at the door. Emma, I underestimated you. We all did. Yes, I said simply. You did. The door closed behind them, leaving me alone in the conference room where, 7 years ago, they'd crushed my dreams of running the family company. My phone buzzed a news alert. The market had already caught wind of the takeover. Harrison Enterprises stock was soaring on news of the Phoenix Capital acquisition. I sat down in the CEO's chair, my chair now, and opened my laptop. There was work to be done. A company to rebuild. A legacy to reshape.